I'm Kitty Bard, and I'm going to be discussing Occam's razor in relevance to Christopher Marlowe, in particular the Marlovian theory of Shakespeare authorship. In the year 1564, there were two individuals born, ironically enough, as they both ended up literature geniuses. There was Christopher Marlowe, who was born in Canterbury, Kent, England, and the one and only William Shakespeare, who was born in Stratford upon Avon, Warwickshire, England. Now, comparably, the families of the two were very similar. They were both of the same class, artisan. The father, John Marlowe, the mother, Catherine Marlowe, and their son, Kit, who was the nickname of Christopher Marlowe. And as for the Shakespeares, there was John Shakespeare, Mary Arden Shakespeare, and William Shakespeare. John Marlowe was a shoemaker, while John Shakespeare was a glove maker. As far as education is concerned, Marlowe's history is extensive. He first attended a choir school known as the King's School, where he received a scholarship to at a young age and was taught religion, music, Latin plays, grammar, poetry, and the list goes on. And it was in Canterbury. Whereas William Shakespeare's education was vastly undocumented, and it was only assumed that he went to New School, the King's New School, which was a grammar school in Stratford. From there, Marlowe pursued a higher education. He received a scholarship to what is now known as Cambridge University, but at the time was known as Corpus Christi College, where he received his BA, his Bachelor of Arts. He got a scholarship there. Also, he created blank verse, which is what Shakespeare is known for, and he became the greatest poet and dramatist ever. While William Shakespeare, on the other hand, pursued a more romantic side of life and decided to marry Anne Hathaway. Christopher Marlowe was an exceptionally busy, intelligent student while attending Corpus Christi, and it wasn't completely restricted towards just schooling. You see, he was recruited by Lord Burghley, who was the Queen's right-hand man, so to speak, where Marlowe was recruited as a spy, and which he was involved in uncovering the Babington plot, which was a conspiracy against the Queen's life. Now, he was also involved in what was known as the School of Night, which was led by Sir Walter Raleigh and Henry Percy. And the School of Night was designed for people of higher intelligence or higher curiosities to share their interest and knowledge without getting scrutinized. And this included mathematics, science, philosophy, astronomy, etc. And all at the same time, Shakespeare was being very domestic, and him and Anne had children, one of them which did perish, unfortunately. Christopher Marlowe, while at school, though his extensive absences, he still managed to obtain his MA and his BA only upon permission or upon request from the Queen herself. He was involved in plays and poetry of his own writing, which became classic and famous but controversial. And this is upon the time where William Shakespeare's life became vastly undocumented. Christopher Marlowe was then arrested under the charges of atheism, which was a capital crime at the time, and he was to be imprisoned, tortured, and burned to death. But 10 days before he was arrested, And, of course, we still can't find Will in the timeline. 10 days before the arrest of Christopher Marlowe, he found himself with 3 others in Deptford at a sort of tavern meeting place owned by the cousin of Lord Burghley. This was on May 30th, 1593, that this disaster happened, where a supposed brawl occurred over fighting over the bill. And between Ingram Fraser and Christopher Marlowe, Marlowe was the victim. He was stabbed in the head just above the left eye and killed, supposedly. The death of Christopher Marlowe really puts this theory on halt, and the only way that we can proceed with this theory is to otherwise prove his death, which is surprisingly very easy, as the Queen's coroner, remember that he is in favor with the Queen, conducted the autopsy. His body was never ID'd, and the only witnesses to the murder were also spies, the 3 men in which he was sharing the room with. So it is said that Christopher Marlowe's body was swapped out with a body double because he was actually conspiring with Lord Burghley to have him basically removed from the country to avoid death, as he was a very valuable spy. So Lord Burghley smuggled Marlowe to France, and all through this, William Shakespeare re-emerged as part of the Chamberlain's Men and the King's Men, where he was a playwright and actor. In conclusion, was it Marlowe from France who wrote William Shakespeare's work as a pen name and then had it sent to England? Or was it William Shakespeare himself who wrote Shakespeare's works from England and got his fame? Now, Occam's razor stating that when you have 2 competing theories that make the exact same predictions, the simpler one is better. Who wins? Marlowe, who had to fake his own death and jump through all those hoops, or William Shakespeare, who was just naturally talented? William Shakespeare wins in the case of Occam's razor. Thank you for your attention.